Welcome everybody, hello.
Hello.
To part 2 of 3 of a 6 class course. What that means. For those of you who couldn't follow, listen. No, just
He's mean.
let's just check our motivation, why you come to a class for 2 hours, except for Johnny who has no clue. You're exempt, like always. Welcome to the 3 joules. If you're ringing, turn it off. Before you start, really think about motivation for class. There could be something in the class today, 1 word, 3 concepts, something that, like a match scratching on a rough surface, can turn on fire something inside of you if you listen with a special awareness. If you're available for it, it can come. If you're not available for it, if you're just going through your everyday, like things are normal, you're just going to have a normal life. You have to be available to you, to the stuff in you. It doesn't come from anywhere else. So I invite you today to look at part 2 of this 3-part class where we talk about the metaphors of something that disappeared. Can someone move that there? Wherever it was, please, thanks. And so spend a minute to think about why you found yourself here. Johnny, you're included in that one. Like, why aren't you doing something else? There's something that you're looking for. We're going to start with this thing called the mandala offering, and then we're going to do something called the refuge. And for those of you who have practiced it before, you know what you should be thinking about this. But I want to clarify, because sometimes, where is it? Jinsot? Who gets confused there?
Yeah, because one's a teacher and I don't know what this type.
Yeah, there's 3 types. Yes, I went and remembered there's 3 words. When it says Jinsot, so Daki Jinsot, where is it? That's second from the Daki Jinsot. That means that if you're practicing by yourself and you do a refuge, meaning you think about the potentiality in everything, you're taking refuge, you're saying, can anything help me on the planet? The ultimate thing that can help you is a true understanding, a real understanding that nothing has its own nature, including your mind, the way you perceive things, the Buddha mind, including the things you perceive, Dharma, the realizations. The ultimate one is knowing that nothing has its own nature. Therefore, it's got the potential to be absolutely anything. And the last one is that there are beings that you might or might not know who have had that realization, and they can help you. Imaginary beings or real beings, depending on who you are. So when you say Jinsot, you're saying, for me, it's part of the, may general goodness come to me. I take refuge that goodness will come to me. If you're studying, you say Chunyem. So sometimes you hear people going Chunyem, may I study, may I hear it. Yeah? So if you're on your own, they're like, oh, may it come to me. Jinsot. That means it's sort of part of the 6 perfections. Yeah, it comes from that. And may I listen to the Dharma. And if I'm teaching, I say Chushe. Or if you're teaching, you say Chushe. Chushe, S-H-E-Y. S-H-E-Y. So that's just to clarify for those of you who want to know that. But the point here is, I mean, you can say it in Italian, you can say it in Spanish, but if the wrong thing's going on in your mind, you're just doing blah blah, you're just doing a ritual. Yeah? The thing that should be going in your mind while you're going should be absolutely everything I experienced does not have that experience coming from it. Therefore, it can potentially be the highest bliss. If you get that, that's while you're doing this, then you're habituating your mind to that idea. If you're not doing that, you're just doing yeah? No comment. This one, with the same idea, you're offering a perfect universe. Why? Because it's got its potential to be perfect. Not because there's something in your fingers. So I invite you to do the same. I figured we'd do that. And then I'll get ready for class. See if you can put yourself in a spot where the highest answers can come to whatever questions you've got about your life and this life. Please. So here we go. Who's going to say Paul? Ukir Jishin Metotram Rira Linshin Degam Padi Sange Shindu Nitewargi Drokun Nanda Shinlaju Parsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kanyatayami Shidam Soki Choknam Ha Janchu Bardu Dagni Kyapsuchi Daki Chishegi Pesonam Ki Roll up and cheer Sange Drupasho Shidam Soki Choknam Lam Janchu Bardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Shishegi Pesonam Ki Roll up and cheer Sange Triparsho Shidam Soki Choknam Lam Janchu Bardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chishegi Pesonam Ki Roll up and cheer Sange Driparsho. Nice, thank you. Let's see what we've got in store for today. Pop quiz. Don't forget your expectations. Who remembers where the story of the Wheel of Life comes from? It had two kingdoms. Let's see what you remember, because I talked blah blah for a long time last week. What did that? Yeah. Hi, Paul.
I remember.
Okay. Let's do this. Give me a summary of where the story came from. Where did we get this idea?
600 BC India.
That's a good answer. How'd you get that?
Two kings from Bacha and Magadha.
That's so good so far.
They like to show respect to each other.
Oh, nice, nice, nice.
So one would bring the other a gift, and the other would then think he had to outdo the gift that was given to him.
So there was this balance of out-gifting.
Out-gifting.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of seats over there. Happy to move around.
And that went on until a gift was needed to excel all others.
Okay, because there was one of them got a really amazing gift, and
The cloaking.
like what kind of cloak? Can anybody remember?
Magic cloak.
Protect you from everything.
It's a magic
Spears.
cloak. You can put it on and be in France.
And it wasn't Harry Potter. Yeah. Cool.
So I think it was he went to the Buddha.
The king that received that cloak went to
Looking for the outgift.
yeah.
Went to the Buddha and said, give him me.
Give him a picture of me.
A picture.
Because that's pretty amazing. Yeah. Good.
And so the first picture, the first wheel of life was painted for the gift.
Yeah. Good.
That's all I got.
That's all you have. Anything else?
When
Well,
they
they
tried to
tried
boot.
to paint the Buddha.
Sorry?
They tried to paint the Buddha. The artist tried to paint the Buddha, but he couldn't. He was just odd.
Because he was so sexy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool. Yeah. He was too radiant for them to actually do anything. It was like,
they didn't paint anything.
yeah.
So Buddha said, "I'll show you," and then took the brush and
No, he did a silhouette of himself
Outline.
first.
Yeah, he did the
Yeah.
outline.
And then he did the outline and instructions on the wheel. Excellent. And then what happened?
And they would. He went to present the gift, and they brought a whole army to present the gift. Because it was
Who went to
so
present the gift? Let's see if we
precious.
can remember them. King Bipasara, who had received the cloak, went to offer it to King Udrayana. Yeah? Okay.
And they brought an army to protect it because it was so precious.
It was the most precious thing on the planet in the year 600 BC.
And King
Yep.
Udrayana saw the army. Udrayana saw it coming.
Yep.
Saw the army coming, so he sent his army out. They're like,
And
whoa,
himself
what's
to meet.
going? They all went out to meet this precious thing.
Nice.
And then it was opened.
Box
And-
after box after box.
Box after box after box.
That's where the idea of Russian dolls came from, I'm sure.
And then, forgive me for not remembering what happened to the armies. Did they all fall down?
They all prostrated and all.
When the thing got rolled out,
Yeah.
everybody except Udrayana
fell to the floor.
fell to the floor because they understood that this was an enlightened being.
Yeah.
And he's like, what the hell's this?
And he didn't understand that, so he brought it back to his chambers and he hung it up and he stared at it until he reached enlightenment.
He saw
He
emptiness.
realized being
Oh no,
united.
He saw emptiness that
he saw
night.
emptiness. Yeah.
What does that mean? Don't really give it to your mum if you had to explain it, or someone down the street.
Well,
He got this gift, which was like a ticking time bomb that was going to claim the first victim on the planet after the Buddha, the first victim to cut them out of the cycle of suffering of life and death. That letter was for Udrayana, right? So that night he stared at this painting until something happened in him. What was it that happened in layman's terms?
he saw the nature of reality and a way to stop suffering.
He saw the nature of reality and a way to stop suffering.
And it put him on a path of getting out of suffering. And I think he left his kingdom and went to study with the Buddha, right?
Excellent. So he put him on a path to once he got to see that ultimate reality, the nature behind things, how they really are, he could see how he could cut suffering, and that sent him on a course to say, this kingdom, I can't help it. Yeah?
And then he derobed from his kingdom and went to go follow the Buddha
Great. And I believe sometime later he went back, by the way.
to
Yeah?
become a king again.
To become a king again, because his evil brother did something naughty or something, and then they killed him. But that's another story. Yeah?
True story.
True story. That's good so far.
we listen to you sometimes.
Huh?
Listen to you sometimes.
That's good. No, that's really, really good. And then, so this Bhava Chakra. What's chakra mean?
Wheel.
What's a chakra?
Wheel.
Most people know it as the energy centers, right? But the reason they're called energy centers is because they actually look like wheels, like wagon wheels. If you look from the top down, it's actually a choke in these subtle systems inside your body that are spraying out energy like spokes in a wheel. The central channel, you're looking down, choked up by these things that we'll talk about in a second. And they look like wheels. So chakra is a wheel. Bhava chakra means existence. Bhava is existence. Life, a wheel of life. Yeah. So this is the painting. That's how it's evolved ever since. So it's actually, if you know how to decode it, and so far all we've done is began to identify items in this painting. It is a tool, like a machine, if you know how to turn it on, or rather how to turn it off, because it's a wheel of suffering. If you know how to press the buttons of this machine, you get out of this experience where things just go wrong, things don't work. Small things, big things. Life and death, time after time. You get what you want, you get it taken away. You go towards what you want, it disappears after you got it. Once you get what you want, the flavor of it goes away. You love someone, they leave or die. You're healthy, you're unhealthy. You have hair, then you don't. Well, you do, but different places. Like shoulders and things. Yeah, and ears, yeah. Yeah, it's wrong. There's something wrong. The funny thing is, humans, we have this thirst to understand really what's going on. Don't lose sight of it. We normalize things. We think we know what's going on. Someone taught us what's going on at school. We know about life. We know about the planets. We know about atoms. We know about cause and effect. We think. If we did, we could predict tomorrow. We can't. We don't know what comes tomorrow. We don't know how things work. We think we know how things work because sometimes they work. The fact that sometimes they work means we don't know how they work. Because if we knew they would work. Do you get that? I mean, that's easy. But we are habituated so much to expect things turn to shit. We are so habituated to that we think that's how things work normally. And that is everything inside that wheel. And this thing is saying not the ultimate nature of things. It does not have to be that way. We are just caught that way. We're caught in a loop and we're trained that way. We think it's like the elephant that gets chained up by a chain. The circus elephant gets chained up by a massive chain with a massive stake on the ground, and he or she can't leave that circle. And eventually they reduce the chain until it's just a rope. An elephant can cut away from that rope, but he's so habituated to realize there's something around his leg that he can't leave, that he doesn't. We are like that. We don't know we can get out. We are so habituated. The point, King Udrayana didn't know either. And it's not a metaphor. This is a reality, but we make it into a dogma if we don't understand it, if we just produce words. Like saying, oh, if you do this, this and that, then it just becomes concepts. These concepts have to become real. So your job, your 50% is to say, what does that mean for me? And so hopefully, those of you who did, you might have some of these. If you don't, draw one. Or you've got some more. Where I'm asking you, once we cover the areas of this painting, you need to do your 50% of the equation. I'll do my 50%, which is to tell you information. Your 50% is to say, how the hell do I use that tomorrow when I go to work and I hate my job? How do I do that when tomorrow I'm in love with somebody and they don't love me back? How do I do that when I'm hungry and I eat junk food instead of healthy food? Etc., etc. That's your job. Can't do your job. The only way this is going to be meaningful is if you do that. So, from at least the year 600, if not way before, humans have been trying to build this idea, like how do we manipulate, understand the universe? How do we understand nature? And so the Bhava Chakra is to understand these inner systems, these inner worlds and outer worlds. What's the ultimate way things work? That's what this painting is about. And in the year 2010 or something, we spent $10 billion building what's called the Large Hadron Collider to try and smash tiny particles together to see if we could see what lies behind the fabric of the smallest particle. So outwardly, science in this day and age is looking for the same thing. The uncanny thing about this massive wheel, which is a set of underground tunnels that are accelerating particles to smash them together, between that and that, is that inside one of these circles, I think it's that one, there's this massive gate where the acceleration of the things sort of smashed together. And just in July 4th, they actually found a particle that they were looking for, the Hobbs? That one. That suggests that there is matter, or there's why things have mass. Anyway, the uncanny thing about that and that is that it looks like that, and I just think that's crazy, right? So it's got exactly the same divisions, and shape. And so they're all looking for the same thing. They're looking for the theory of everything. Let's quickly review the core components, one way to divide the information in the wheel of life. The Buddha taught this thing called the 4 Arial Truths or 4 Noble Truths. And what's the first one?
Life is suffering.
Yeah, that life is suffering. Now, what does that mean?
Everything goes to suffering.
That
Things come and they go.
yeah, as things are messed up. As soon as you're born, you're going to die. Yeah, so whatever you get is going to be taken away. They say even the goodnesses, after you habituate with them, you lose the flavor of them. Like a haircut. You might get a really beautiful haircut. And then a day or two later, it's like, I'm not sure I like it. You know? Or you get the job, or you spend time in the career, or you find the lover of your life. And if you're really honest, and not to be depressive, just observe it as a thing. That things change, and we don't like the change. It's suffering. The most graphic idea about that in Tibetan Buddhism that I've heard was, when I first heard this, they said it's like licking honey. So even the goodnesses are like licking honey. It's like you get sweetness on your lips, but it's licking honey off a razor blade. Because at the end of every sweetness, that must necessarily end in suffering. So even the most beautiful thing you can have must be taken away from you at the bare minimum when you die. Yeah? Unless you get some deep realizations that cut that cycle. So we'll talk about that. So for those of you who know about the 4 Arial Truths, they are represented by Mr. Death, which is the red dude, and the 5 or 6 realms in there. The human realm, one way of being in this wheel of life, in samsara, in this reality, one way of being in this reality that we experience of suffering, things start and end, is to be human. And to be human does not mean you look like this, because there are humans that don't look like this, that don't have an arm, that have no legs, that might function with too many ribs. We're not all the same. But there's a way of viewing the world that's a human way. And that's not a choice, and it's not the correct and only way. It's one, according to this, it's one of many ways of observing this reality which starts and ends. Another way is the animal realm. So out of those 5 or 6 realms that are in there, we can verify 2 of them. The animal realm, there's a different way of viewing this world if you're an animal or an insect than if you're a human. We see things, and we think our way of seeing it is correct. And in fact, we are also filtering whatever this reality is through the senses, and we think that the interpretation of those senses is the truth. You in fact don't know what light is outside your eye. Whatever's going on, whatever you're seeing over here, is not happening over here really. If you analyze it, you are getting electrical signals from the cells at the back of your eye into the dark pitch of your skull. We know this. And those electrical signals are firing off, and then your mind, not your brain, your mind is interpreting those electrical signals with flavors. This is nice, this is not nice. Hector's got an annoying voice, shut him up. Oh, that sounds so meaningful to me. Why did he mention my haircut? Oh dear. I'm just adding to the suffering now. So you get the idea that out of that entire painting, there's two areas that are signifying suffering. You should know that, right? And what I asked you to do, and what you should do on a piece of paper, and now if you haven't done it already, is what's that for you? What's the closest you know death? You have an intellectual understanding of what happens at death. We don't spend time thinking about it. You already have some knowing about death. So spend a minute, review what you wrote last week about, well, what do I understand about that section of the painting, death? And then about the realms. What do I understand about what's it like to be human and animal? And is there any other way? If there's 2 ways of seeing this world, could there be 3? Could there be 4? Could there be 5? When I see a pen, I see a pen. When a dog sees a pen, it sees something else. We all are familiar with that analogy, right?
But how do you, so from my understanding is that all these realms exist in this, in whatever, I guess you say reality that we're in, right? Exists all right now. So there are some people who are in the demigod realm that are here right now. And some people that are creating spirits that are here right now.
Yep.
It's just that we don't recognize them as that.
Or we don't share their perception. So there are subtle bodies. They might not be in here in this room. They
Yeah.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be. It depends on your understanding of where realities come from. And we'll get to that today when we talk about karma and entities. Yeah, we'll get to that today. So we could be sharing this reality, and in fact we do. To some slice, we are all individuals. I'm not. We are all individuals. I'm not. That's a joke. We're all sharing a reality, but none of us are having exactly the same reality. That we can verify. So even between humans, we have divisions of reality. In fact, for some people, a certain liquid will be poison, and for others it would be healthy. If you're sugar and you're diabetic, that has a very different reality to you than if you're not diabetic. Yeah. So even in the human realm, there are divisions. But what this painting is saying, broadly speaking, in this desire realm, in the realm of samsara, there are 6 or 5 divisions or ways to interpret objects, and they are all necessarily locked in suffering, because they all will die and born and die and born and die and born and die and born, and you skip between your awareness, your experience skips from realm to realm.
So did you just say that the human and the animal realm is just one big scale, and they're on one end of one?
No, because they're extremely different. We can slide within the human scale. So, for example, let's talk about the pen example. I take a pen to an Eskimo, he doesn't know what it is. But we can teach him what it is, and after some while they'll know it's a writing implement. Or they'll teach us to fish with it. I don't know, whichever wins, right? But you can't do that to a dog. You might do that to a monkey, but I don't know if they have the same. Yeah? So this says they're divisions. Some people interpret this as metaphors for we live like animals, or it's actually, my understanding is that it's not that. You actually can have a shift of perception where you are having an animal experience, you are no longer a human. We'll talk about that later. So I encourage you, please spend a minute thinking, what do I know about death really? And how do I think, what will happen to me after I die? How do I think that's coming to me? Don't be afraid to, it's your own private thing. And then what do I know about realms of existence? Is the way I look at the world the only way the world is? Is there more ways of experiencing? Because if there is, then we should investigate how that happens, how that's caused. So spend a minute, and then I'll go to the next part. Up. The next part of the wheel that I want to talk about is the cessation of suffering. So after the Buddha woke up, he taught these 4 ideas. He says, hey dudes, everything's suffering. Everything we've ever done just ends in suffering. We don't know what we're doing. He'll explain why. And he goes, hold on, it doesn't have to be that way. Something made it that way. And if you understand that something made it that way, you can undo that something. So that's like a big aha. Like sheep to the slaughter, we go to death, all of us, and never once do we think we can stop it. It took me 15 years of studying this stuff before the idea naturally popped into my head that perhaps it's possible to stop death. It sounds like a crazy thing to say the first time you say it. It still sounds a little naughty for me. to be in this realm and say, you can stop death. What the hell's that mean? I never saw anybody stopping death. Everyone's died. Just go back one generation, they're dead. What if death isn't death? 15 years before the thought naturally popped up and went, hold on, it's not the way I thought it was. 15 years of hammering in my head, going against the cycle of habituating that death is normal. I'm the elephant with the chain. Of course I'm going to stay by the stake. But it's just a string. No, it's a chain. It's death. It's just a string. I can break it off anytime. Something hopefully can happen when you get that. So he said, suffering is caused, it's produced, and this is the stuff that produces it. At the core of the wheel, the hub of it, the bastard we're going to get to look at today, those three creatures in the middle, is the thing that keeps the thing turning. It's the vital, if you get anything out of today, get that. And then that produces the big cycle of, it's called the 12 links of dependent origination. We're also going to cover that. That causes suffering. If you understand that, how one thing leads to the next, one thing leads to the next, and what's the engine that's driving it, then you can do what's called the reverse order. If you know that that caused that, and that caused that, and that caused that, if you don't do that, that won't be caused. If you don't do that, that won't be caused. If you don't do that, that won't be caused. And you can stop it. And then he said, you can stop it. You can stop suffering. And these are the instructions for stopping suffering. The moon and the instructions down there, and I'll give you a quick overview of that today, but we'll go in the next class, we'll go in detail about understanding the instructions. The moon represents nirvana. Sorry, now I'm teaching, I should have been asking. What's the moon represent?
Nirvana.
Damn it. So, can I ask you now to go back and see where you understand cause and effect in your world? I forgot to do that. In this thing, where do you think suffering comes from for you? All the things that don't work, that turn bad, even the good things. Huh?
Ignorance.
You really think it comes from ignorance? I know that that's what I'm about to tell you, but do you really think that?
Well, it's a mix of things, right? But we want to see it.
I'm trying to get from your mind for you to look at your own prejudice about where you think it comes from. Because if you see it, you can smash it. If you keep it in there, it'll just be in there. So where do you think things going wrong comes from?
Other people.
Other people is one. Yeah, them. Yeah? Bataka.
Especially my parents.
Especially your dad and mum, yeah. I agree. I've met them. No. I mean, mine. That's good. Other people, we do. We think it comes from outside of us. That's the first one. That's beautiful. True. Like, that's the instinct. That's one of the things about being locked in this samsaric world. We think that, animals think that. We think.
Wanting, disliking.
Yeah, so that wanting stuff. Having expectations about stuff we want. Expectations that don't match up to reality. So you have an expectation that dating this person will make you happy. And you're building up this energy and you date them and you're not happy. And it's them, not you. They could change, yeah. In fact, they're them. Reality is that reality. You wanting it to be different is one way of suffering. Wanting things to taste the way they don't, or want things to taste the way it doesn't, is crazy. We live our days like that all the time. I want this not to be what it is. Of course you're going to suffer. Duh. It's like me wanting hair all the time. Okay. So wherever you think it comes from, get to know it, because we're going to smash it if you want to. Yay! Then do you really think that suffering can stop, or do you think we're chained up? What's your assumption? I know for me, so many things, oh, it's just the way it is. I'm stuck this way. I'm forever going to go this way, just because I've been habituated that way.
It can stop.
Can it?
Yeah.
Do you really think so?
I really think so.
Really think so?
Would I say so?
Can it cessate? Can it permanently stop?
You can definitely get better.
Yeah?
You can definitely get better.
You can get better, right? That's good. That's what we really, I think I really feel that. And do I really believe we can stop? Sometimes, but very, very few times. You know? Yeah. When I'm meditating on my cushion, sometimes.
Well, because there are certain things that you cannot escape, like get sick, get old, die. All these things.
If what Laurent said was right, that it's out there, that it's problem, that it's outside of you, then that's true. But if when we discuss dependent origination, we find out that they're not out there, then that might not be true.
But your body, no matter what, will die.
But you might not see it as there.
Yes.
Ding. We'll get the instructions in a second. So then there's a way to get to that nirvana. It's good thinking, yeah? There's a way to get to that nirvana, and that's the Buddha going, hey, there's the moon over there. I can show you how to get there because I just got there. Yeah? And it wasn't that hard. We're always that close. And one thing, I'll share this with you, one thing that's been happening to my meditations lately and to thinking about these things in preparing for this class in particular, about being close to understanding how things really work. And therefore, if you understand them, you can know what to put into action to stop suffering. That the one thing that keeps popping up is if these things are truths, if these are universal truths, if these are ultimate truths, either by the Buddha teaching them or any other method, then you're next to them all the time. It's here all the time. It's not hard to find them. You know, I guess in the Christian tradition they'd say, you know, God is everywhere. I didn't understand what that meant because I'm like, he's not in the toilet, you know? Like, he can't be in the toilet because that's dirty. Yeah, so like I used to think that as a kid, you know? What does it mean God's everywhere? You know? Then obviously, you know, private things were really not uncomfortable. Yeah, because it was everywhere. It's not like that. But if these things are ultimate truths, if understanding the nature of suffering and stopping it, cessating it for good, are ultimate truths, meaning universal truth, then you can tap into it at any second. We're always that close. And part of me asking you at the beginning of class to tap into that motivation that you have is because if you keep thinking like the elephant, we're chained up, you're never going to see it. You're never going to see it's just string. You're always going to think it's a chain. So the Buddha there, it signifies, so the painting is split up into this area. The Buddha signifies as a way out. And really think about it. If you do think every now and then that you can truly stop permanently suffering, permanently, you can be in a state where things don't have to be the way they are. And it's not that you travel to Mars and back. It's like you're still you, but not this you. You are the new you who can see everything. You. What would the steps be to get there? If everything has a cause, and we sort of believe that, except for our own experience inwardly, if everything has a cause, then everything has a cause, including suffering. And if you can find the cause, you can stop it. Perfection has a cause. What would the steps be to get there? That's worth investigating. So, we talked a little bit about Mr. Death. And to answer your question, yes, as soon as you're born, your body will finish. But the way we see it does not have to be the way it is. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, and that goes into deeper teaching. You can't do it. Then we talked about the bardo. Do you remember what this was?
In between.
In between. Oh, that's because it says it up there. Okay. I'm really good at this. Audio visual thing. There's a song by Elvis Perkins where he says, "Where do you think you go when you die?" And I love that song. It's a lovely song. I'll see if I find it on the break and play it to you. What do you think happens to you when you die? We all think something. We might not spend time thinking about it. But what this part of the wheel says is that there's an intermediate stage between being here, being this you, and then being something else. Where did you come from? Where did your first perception of you come from? The first moment of being you on the planet, where did that come from? Who put that in you? Your first conscious or unconscious movement of I'm happy, or I'm sad, or this is comfortable, or this is warm, or this is movement, or this is pressure. There was a first thought that occurred to this thing we call you. And in this system we believe there's two yous. The physical you, which is sperm and egg cells multiplying, that cause this stuff, that keeps changing. You're not this. If you think you're this, you're up for disappointment. Because it didn't look like this 2 years ago. Ain't gonna look like this in 3 years' time. Yeah, or like this. So this is not what we're talking about. This is not you. The you listening to these words and having experiences about these words is that you I'm talking to. That one's got a cause too. And so where did the first moment of that you happen? Who made that? What do you believe happened? And they're saying that it's never ending. Never ending. Life and death, life and death. And in between, you go into these dark and light cycles where all the negative energies of your intentions throughout your living years come to fruition and they drag you down into the lower realms of existence, and all the goodnesses drag you up, all the motivations for your actions and thought and speech drag you up to a better way of being. More pleasures, more pains, more pleasures, more pains, but it's still pleasure and pain. It's still inside death. And in that cycle, we go through eons of existence without beginning, they say. So that's what the dark and the light is. That's the bardo.
So you go to both. You don't go to one or the other. You go to both.
They say that you actually have an experience of both in between. So the process at death, according to the people that have perceived these things in meditation and what the Buddha taught and the rest, is that there are up to 7 cycles of 7 days where you pass at the moment. Your mind, your body, it stops functioning. Your consciousness does not. I mean, people are lucid right up to death. What do you think? Your mind, your brain will stop, the electrical signals could stop, the vehicle by which you are conscious stops. But just because the car crashed doesn't mean the driver's dead. So the consciousness of you observing that you can't move the fingers anymore and you hear the voices of your loved ones, your mind continues according to this. And at some point you disengage the awareness from this thing. But it's not like somebody ripped it out, now it's floating. It's just movement of your consciousness. When you're dreaming or when you're sitting awake or when you're listening, you're just having movements of consciousness, and we're connecting it to all this physicality. It's no different. 1 minute you're there, 1 minute you're not. And you will have all your karmas coming up, all your energies coming up, and they say you will experience the horrors, most darkest horrors, the darknesses that are in you, not outside of you, in you, built up over years, eons, lifetimes. And you will experience some blisses, yeah? You'll go through these movements just like we do now, a little bit more heightened. You're not stuck here. Your mind, they say your mind can travel travel milliseconds between here and other places. So when you pass, your mind, disengaged from this physicality, can go anywhere that draws you. Because you're so disorientated, you go to loved ones, to their thoughts, to their, yeah? And depending on what interacting with their thoughts does to you is whether you get more of the dark ones or the white ones. It's like a lottery, really, inside the wheel. So they say that 7 times that could happen before you begin to take shape into the desire of being that we have at death. We'll cover that next class. One of the big desires that we die with is the fear of stopping. That we're going to stop. And that gives rise to wanting to be, clinging on to being, which produces more of the same. So they say 7 times 7, up to 49 days, yeah? That you could, within those 7 cycles, become a being of any shape and color, depending on the storehouse of karmas, intentions, energies that you have. So if you've spent your entire life being wanting, greedy, you must have the experience equal and opposite to that. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If that's your habituation, you must enter a state of being that allows that to emerge. Same with goodnesses, same with compassion. That's why the secret to happiness is to give, to love. It's actually a selfish motivation. The more you give, the more you love, the more you experience those things in return. You can practice that in this. Okay.
So this is a little bit off topic, but
Do you have to?
Have anyone seen the movie The Fountain? It tries to tell the story of one man going through that in 3 different timelines, and it's
Oh, how beautiful! What's this movie?
It's done by Aronofsky. It's called The Fountain.
The Fountain. Oh, actually, yeah, I remember I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's lovely. Yeah, nice. So that's the bardo. I ask you to write down on your paper, where do you think you go when you die? You must think something, or did you never think about it? Yeah, what happens to you after you eyes stop? What do you really think? I know what I was taught at school. I know what my culture believed. I know what my mum told me, but do I know them to be true? Have I rationalized them? Have I used logic to work through them? I now know what the Buddhists taught me, and that took me like 10 years before or maybe I believe it. It took lots of deconstructing. What do you really think happens? Because you're going to die. What's going to happen? It's an important question. Much more important than did I get a Facebook update. We talked about the 6 realms, but let's just cover them quickly. Pleasure beings and near pleasure beings could be a metaphor. I don't really know. They say it's not. Yeah. So even in the human realm, I know people that live pleasure realm existences. They don't need for anything. Yeah? They have enough money and time and leisure to have pleasures all the time. But then they don't last. Yeah? They say that these beings have subtle bodies. They're not like these kind of bodies. They're sort of special light bodies that they live up to 500 years in total pleasure. But then after all the goodnesses are exhausted that actually produce those kind of existences, they must only be left with negative energies inside of them, negative karmas, which drop them down to the lowest house. Yeah? I'm hurrying because we haven't started today's class. But this is important. Yeah? I hope. Is it? Human realm, anybody know about that place? Yeah? Think about the place as the way you see the world, not the world outside your head, okay? Think about these realms as the way you are forced to see this world, not the way this world you think is outside your head. Does that make sense? The way you experience it is what this means. It's not this way. That's wrong. Yeah? the animal realm. So the way a creature moving about like that is forced to see this world is a realm trapped in samsara. They say there are preta realms or craving spirits, subtle bodies that they can be in this very room seeing similar things that we see, but they see them completely different. They say that they might see food, but for them, as soon as they get close to it, it turns into a revolting mess. They can never be satisfied.
Is that what they would call the hungry ghost realm?
Yep, hungry ghost realm, perfect, yeah. Oh. Craving spirit, Hector's eating. And there's hell beings. If what I said at the beginning was true, that a human realm isn't what we think is outside our head, that what we are forced to experience this world as, then you can imagine that there are consciousnesses that are forced to experience the most horrid experiences. And I don't want to go into them, because if you get to the detail of the 84 hells of this and that, you would cry. So it takes us to this class. But before we start, can we sing Raymond Happy Birthday? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Raymond. Welcome to the class. Happy birthday to you. Woo. Thank you. Thanks for coming. It's only because you said the right answer. So I was waiting for the right answer. So, are you getting an idea that so far we're just describing states, that all the things that I've just covered warrant deeper investigation if they've got some meaning? Like, you want to know about dependent origination if it's the cause of suffering. In fact, is there anything else that you should know before you die? How to operate Facebook? What do we do in the launch of Windows 8? Do I swap to Mac? You know, like, really, out of all the things that you need to know, one thing you know for sure, this thing will stop. And the questions you've asked so far, what happens when it stops? They're worth asking, honestly. And if you've asked it yourself, so some of us are Dharma students, professional Buddhists, you know, you're in danger of normalizing that. Oh, I think about peace. Bullshit, like, you gotta work at something. Death is coming. Like, it's not like boo, it's like, it's for real. You know? And it's not just to you. It's to your mum, to your sister, to your brother, to your uncle, to your neighbor, to your friends, to your lovers, to your children. Everything in here. Don't pretend it's not. So what if you can get some wisdom about it? It's worth knowing. It's really, really worth knowing. Please. In fact, I don't think there's anything else worth knowing. Unfortunately, I've got to pay the rent, so I've got to go and do the other non-important stuff, and I've got to think about it in an important way. Unfortunately, I have to buy clothes because people don't want to see me naked, so I have to go to work, and yeah. There's all these things we got to do, but inside of you there should be a yearning, if you have it, to figure it out, please. So the hub of this horrid thing we're describing, Bhava Chakra, is the three poisons. This is the engine that drives suffering. Remember that what was this in the four aerial truths? I just finished teaching it 3 seconds ago. Cool.
Suffering has a cause.
Of course. Thank you. Happy birthday to. Oh no, it's not your birthday. The center, the hub, the thing that makes the machine that we're stuck in, the machine we're stuck in, work, are these three little creatures. I'll share. Yep.
Does that include people?
No, these creatures are metaphors to something that is so predominant in your mind that you don't know it.
No, I'm talking about like in things.
Yeah. Things include people. I see what you mean. Yep. Things are anything and everything. Yeah? So ignorantly liking, it's okay to like things. I like getting happy, okay? The Buddha likes getting enlightened. Yeah? Like, I'm sure it's... Yeah? Yeah, Facebook like. Yeah? Yeah, he's sitting there going...
Is the cause of suffering.
Yeah, just don't send him any attachments.
Oh, I heard that sound effect.
Sorry. This thing, think about it. The implication here is that everything that spins out of these three things is suffering. This is causing suffering. So getting a deep understanding of these three metaphors, and these are metaphors, there's no real chicken in your mind, okay? No, peck. If you understand these things, you then have a chance at stopping suffering, because these are the root causes of suffering. In fact, the chicken is the secondary. There's a deeper root cause. The chicken ignorantly liking, the reason it's a chicken is because chickens are peck, want, yeah? And they say that your mind moves 65 times a finger snap. You have 65 distinct movements of mind, of which nearly all of them are the chicken or the snake. We'll cover the snake in a second. And what this means is that for everything we sit around and go, oh, I like that, I don't like that, I'm too chubby, I don't like that. The snake means disliking, ignorantly disliking. Yeah? You know, I don't like that, I like that, I want that, I don't want that. Oh, she's got good hair, she's got shitty hair, I don't like the way you said that, or why did you say that? You're doing it so much, you are not aware that this is driving this cycle of suffering. Because what you think you're liking and what you think you're disliking isn't what it is. Does that make sense? So you're producing a fakeness, you're producing a unreality, because what you think you're liking isn't what it is. It's like picking up the phone, you think you're talking to your mum, and instead you're talking to your lawyer. They didn't say anything, and you just told your mum you murdered somebody. Yeah? But it's your lawyer. You're ignorant about who's on the other side of the phone. So you're making mistakes 65 times a second. That's why it's the cause of suffering. Because we don't understand who's on the other side of the phone. So, does that make sense? We don't know what we're dealing with. We think it's something else. It's actually not. It's not ignorance as in I'm stupid. It's not ignorance as I don't understand it. You understand it to be the wrong thing. It's misunderstanding, which is Mr. Chup Chup's pig. From his mouth comes liking things stupidly, disliking things stupidly. He is stupidly. He signifies complete ignorance of the way things really are.
Of ultimate reality.
Yep. Of ultimate reality. Reality. The pig here, the key factor to why we suffer is because we are forced as humans, because we're locked in this wheel, we are forced to think that this is the way the world is. And just a tiny bit of analysis, like just think about it like this. If this is the way things are from their own side, every single thing, human, animal, different humans, must observe these things to mean and be exactly the same, because the nature of them comes from them. Everybody must think that's the same thing. An elephant looking at it, an ant looking at it, an Eskimo looking at it, if it comes from it. But it doesn't come from it, because we all argue about what it is. If there's disagreement, there is no energy coming from here saying, I am this. We are ignorant about how this exists because some mechanics about who we are as human, the filters that we have, and then how we interpret the filters are telling us that reality is the way I experience it. And in fact, out of the infinite possibility that exists outside here, just in the light range, we know that we can't see ultraviolet. We know we can't see UV with our eyes. And so we don't think they exist. But then we've been able to prove through logic that other light waves exist outside the ones we capture. But we've not had an internal, we can't have an external experience of that. We only have an experience of a picture of UV ray on a screen. Does that make sense? Which is still within our range. So out of the infinite range of things you could see, the way you could see light emanating from light sources, UV emanating from, we can't see it. We think this is it. In fact, the way this light comes at you, it is completely different to the way you're perceiving it, because the senses only have a limited range of capture, and then your interpretation has a limited range of interpretation. We'll get to that when we talk about dependent origination. Question?
So, here's my problem.
Your problem. Let's talk about your problem. You're welcome. Happy birthday.
No, so here's the thing. The fact that, let's say, the rock is coming at me, and that's going to hurt me, okay?
It could.
The fact that I see it as a rock, as an object that's going to hurt me,
Yep.
how is it going to affect the karma of it coming at me? You know what I mean? Like, I understand that I don't like the flavor of a rock coming at me and breaking my head,
Yep.
but that's beside the point. The logic of physics, how is my flavor of seeing that affects the reality that we all exist in, the ultimate reality, in a way that rock will come at me, just because I don't like it?
No, not just because you don't like it. The fact that you don't like it comes from something else. So, can you stop this? But let me. There's two worlds happening at the same time: ultimate reality and relative reality. Relative reality is someone threw a rock at you. Yeah, that rock's going to hit your head. Let's put it into body terms. As soon as you're born, this body is doomed to die. It grows to a certain thing and turns off. A tree, as soon as it's planted, rises and then it drops. Causality in the relative world, we can observe functions in a certain way. No question about that, no problem about that. We can manipulate 90% of that. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes the rock doesn't hit me. Okay? But we can say, if I do that, the rock goes. Absolute causality. There's no arguing to that. Some people might like it. Some people might get the rock hitting them. It might not cause pain. They might not have sensors for pain.
Something's missing with the explanation of karma. See what I mean? Like, when you say that this is because you caused it, how are you affecting the...
You didn't just cause the... So there are levels of understanding. I know we're not covering karma. Wish we had time to. But no, it's worth investigating, and there's plenty of places you can do that too. Let me just give you a quick answer, hopefully. Two realities are happening. Yeah, ACO 5, come to the next course where we cover karma. 12 weeks of karma. Two realities are happening. The caused reality on the outside of you, yeah, rock being thrown at you, your body cells growing, the tree growing up. That's the nature of this experience as we see it as humans. No problem with that. The way you must interpret that, you don't have a choice if you dislike it once it hits you. That's caused by your consciousness. Your mind is interpreting the contact of rock
So if I can
in a
meditate-
specific way.
If I can meditate long enough, then I will think of that, I change the karma.
No, there's a different way of changing the karma. You don't just focus on it. You can stop the karma if you get to the four forces of stopping that kind of karma. But I can't talk about that now because I want to get through the class. But it's a good question. There are two realities. Just think about this, two realities. Normal reality, cause and effect. You get in a car, the car drives, you talk to somebody, they listen, you talk back. Cause and effect in the relative way, in the way we think we manipulate reality. But ultimate reality, the fact that none of that really exists separate to the way you are experiencing it. In other words, your mind is having complete sensation and commentary over what's occurring in the relative world. That, I'm sure you can see, is only caused inside of you. Because everybody that gets hit by a rock feels it differently, experiences it differently. You think that your way is the only way to experience a rock hitting you. Some people get hit by a rock, they completely forget their entire miserable lives and they have a brand new life because they've had amnesia. It's lovely. We still got hit by a rock though. That's still caused. Yeah? Moving on. I hope that settles a little bit. The core of what's driving this cycle, and this is really, really important, is ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing that the mental interpretation on my reality comes from me. And that there's nothing outside of that. A deep understanding of karma and emptiness can break this ignorance. And to use the metaphor of the movie The Matrix, once you take, is it the red pill?
Yeah.
Once you take the red pill, you realize that there is no reality like the way you thought there was. That there is another reality. And once you see that other reality, there's no way you can come back to this reality and live the same way you ever did. There's no way you could like things ignorantly when you recognize that there's nothing in those things that make you happy or unhappy. And so your mind no longer does these two things, ignorant liking and disliking, ignorant liking and disliking. Does that make sense? And so that leads us to, if that's turning the hub of the wheel, this is causality, cause and effect, the 12 links of dependent origination. This is, to some degree, a teaching on karma, but it's also a teaching on what produces us as beings. I want to jump to, we talked about the Buddha and the moon. Here are the instructions I told you about that are written at the bottom here on how to operate this machine. And they say, so outside the wheel is Buddha. He says, hey, I found the way out. And he points to the moon, and under the moon are written these instructions. Take this up and give that up. Enter into the Buddha's teaching, destroy the forces of the Lord of Death, like an elephant crushing a house of reeds. Those who gently follow this path of self-control will escape the wheel of rebirth and put an end to pain. We'll deconstruct that next week. There's meaning locked into every word. There's like paragraphs and paragraphs written about each one of those words that give you the key how to turn on the machine. So we'll take a quick break here. Can we take a 10-minute break, and then we come back, we'll do dependent origination, which is what's being turned by the wheel, and then we go have dinner or something. Thank you, Amy. Rush.